I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the April 20th, 2015 special meeting of the Bristol Downtown Development Corporation. And I am just going to take a moment as we have two newly appointed members who are joining us for their first public meeting. And I'd like to welcome Joe Garino and Amy Greaves to the board. And if you can each just take a minute and introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do.
Joe Garino, I am a Bristol resident for the last couple of years. Was born and raised in Bristol, moved out for a few years, and I'm back. I'm a banker at Farmington Bank in Farmington, Connecticut. I've been a banker my entire career. I specialize in business lending, and my wife and I raised 3 children. One is still home, and 2 are out on their own, and that's about my story.
Thanks, Joe. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Greaves. I've been a Bristol resident for 15 years. No, 10 years, sorry, 10 years. I'm originally from Southington. I'm a teacher in New Britain. I have 3 children of my own, small children. We just moved this past summer and made a conscious choice to stay in Bristol. I'm very impressed with our school systems and what our city has to offer, and one of the main reasons why I asked to be on this board.
Great.
Thank you for having me.
And I've met you both, but John, I don't know. If
John Lodovico, welcome aboard. It's a great board, exciting.
Okay, and our 3 remaining members, Barbara Fontaine, Kelly Marr, and Tom Barnes, are unable to join us tonight. But with the 4 of us, we do have a quorum, and we are going to proceed. So with that, I have the approval of the minutes of the March 9, 2015 regular meeting, which were distributed, I think, I want to say it was March 11th, March 12th. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second? You guys probably haven't read them. So, and I can't second them. So we won't take a second.
Okay.
We'll move it next month. Okay, next item on the agenda is written communications received by board members. Does anybody have anything to report? Hearing none. The next item on the agenda is the opening of the meeting to members of the public who wish to be heard on any agenda item. Sign-up sheet. Did anybody sign up for that? Thank you. Mr. Roos.
Good evening. I first want to apologize. I was a little bit heated when I spoke last time because some things that the person that spoke before me was saying. But I do feel really passionately about what I've been speaking about. I don't know if some of you remember when I came here and spoke in the beginning, I was talking about how I felt that the state was trying to push debt off onto the municipalities for infrastructure, and transit-oriented development was one way that they're doing it. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Governor's Bill 6851, which was introduced, which gave the power of eminent domain to this transit corridor authority within a half-a-mile radius of any bus, rapid transit, or train station, which would involve Bristol's downtown. And there's a gentleman by the name of Francis Pickering. He used to work for the CCRPA. I don't know if anybody knows who he is. He's the executive director of the Western Connecticut Council of Governments now. And he testified against the bill. Some of the statements that he made were basically many questions need to be answered. He wants to know, how will the authority relate to the state's tradition of home rule? How will projects be selected, and will there be public involvement? And what recourse do homeowners and municipalities have in case of disputes? Well, one of the most interesting things that I thought he said was he found that different states, when they use these authorities, they establish these authorities, they used it as a means to take the debt off the state ledgers. So this is my concern. I mean, I'm still not clear how we got here in Bristol from wanting to develop the parcel to smart growth or transit-oriented development. I know you said that we sent an RFP. Was the RFP for smart growth specifically, or for transit-oriented development, or that?
The RFP was for a developer to develop the 17-acre parcel across the street.
Okay, so we're focusing on mixed use, which is, according to experts, the most difficult to finance. I'm wondering why are we doing that, you know, when it's the riskiest kind of development and it's the hardest thing. And now this is the solution to the problem, is to throw money at it. You know, I'm well aware there's other people that are interested in developing the property, but you know, we've gone on extension after extension after extension. So now, who's the debt going to fall on? Is it going to remain in Bristol's hands? As far as I'm concerned, it's not in the residents' hands right now. If you look at the POCD survey, not the results, but the raw data, because the final draft of the POCD does not represent what the raw data says, in my opinion. So I ask you, do you want to be a part of this giant can of worms? Do you want to go down that road? Something that you wouldn't want to think about, because all your names are going to be on the documents, and this is something that's not going to be reversible for the future of Bristol. I think we're in economic decline right now, and I've got a lot of data here, and I could either read it or I could forward it to you, but basically, Reuters notes U.S. private developers added the smallest number of workers in more than a year in March, and factory activity hit a 2-year low. Bureau of Labor Statistics notes the number of those 16 years or older who didn't participate in the labor market increased to an all-time high of 29.8% unemployed. Bloomberg News reports Institute of Supply Management's index declined to 51.5%, the weakest since May 2013. The gauge has fallen for 5 straight months. Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta forecast for GDP growth in the first quarter has fluctuated between 0.1 and 0%. U.S. Census Bureau latest balance of trade figure reports a record high trade deficit in February of $35.4 billion. And I could go on. I mean, if we're in economic decline and we start to build too much housing, who's going to inhabit that housing, and how's that going to affect the future of Bristol? It's not going to be a net gain. So I ask you to consider it, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who has not signed up wish to be heard? Next item on the agenda under new business is Treasurer's Report and action on pending invoices. Our brand newly elected treasurer is not here this evening, so we will have a treasurer's report next month, I promise. But I do have 3 pending invoices that I would like to take action on so we can get them paid. The first one is from Randstad, and it is for our recording secretary, Ms. Bates, and it's for a total of $130. Can I have a motion to approve payment?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this one's approved. The second one is again for Randstad for our recording secretary, Ms. Bates, and it's in the amount of $150. Can I have a motion to
Madam
approve?
Chair, what dates are those?
This one is dated January 4th, 2015, and this one is dated for the week of March 15th, 2015. I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one is approved. And the last invoice I have is from Hinckley, Allen & Snyder for our legal counsel attorney DeBasio. And the date on this invoice is, the bill date is actually December 17th, 2014. And these were services that were provided for the month of November through November 30th, 2014. General legal services, there was a breakdown by sort of item, task performed, and the time allowed, all at the blended billing rate we negotiated with our attorneys, which I'll note is very favorable. It's 15 hours for the amount of $3,375. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. And I apologize to both of you for the delay in getting these bills paid with the substitution of treasurers. We'll get this taken care of quickly. Okay, moving right along, the next item on the agenda is the report from Renaissance on the financing, development, and leasing plan, and to take any necessary action. Mr. Porter.
So, we have been working pretty hard since our presentation to you folks.
Ryan, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but
Sure.
Did you have an opportunity to?
I didn't.
Do you want to introduce yourself to the new board members?
Thank you, sorry. I'm Ryan from Renaissance. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for joining. Appreciate that. We've been working pretty hard ourselves with our local development team behind us since our presentation to you last month as relates to the CHAMP financing program and how that works exactly. We've dived into CHFA portion of that, which is the bond financing for the construction loan. And we have a lot of things that have come to light since that time, and we'd like to be able to go over those folks with you. Most of them come into the underwriting that we're talking about with the equity that wants to potentially put money into this deal. We're ready to give that report, but as we've discussed with the BDDC Council, some of that falls under, in our belief, the FOI rules, in that it's for negotiations that we're having actually with our equity players right now as to what returns they would need, et cetera, et cetera. Our goal is still to submit for the CHAMP application in June on the 10th, so that's what we're working towards. Our architects are still working towards that goal, as well as the site engineers, who are going to be submitting for site plan amendments for the new plan, which is really not new, it's just only building B first, which is the mixed-use building, which is residential over retail. I will tell you that in order to make the financing through the CHAMP program and the CHFA program work, our plan right now is actually to reduce this, is new in the last couple of weeks, is to reduce the building from 5 stories to 4 stories. So we're talking about reducing the unit count from 138 units on the last program that we went over with you folks to 100 units, and it's still the same amount of retail space. So it's still about 22,000 square feet of ground floor space, of which 4,000 to 5,000 feet would be amenity space for the building on that northern wing where...
You said 22,000.
Yeah, it's about 21 to 22,000, of which 4,000 to 5,000 will be amenity space for the building. So gym, common space. We're actually potentially considering that retail space and actually paying rent for that as opposed to owning that space also. But it's the same retail program, same ground floor program, same piazza, same roads, additional parking that's closer is what we're working on. So where the old hotel pad would be temporary parking to provide more convenience-based parking for the building. And it would be a reduction in the total residential units from 138 at the last meeting we had to 100 units. Oddly enough, that falls right in the realm of what we negotiated 4.5 years ago, which was 100 units and 20,000 feet of retail. Certainly not purposeful, but it ended up being there, ironically, at the end of the day.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So with this reduction, do you have to go, I would think with site plan, you have to go back to the land use boards? Or
Yes.
All right. With the deadline of June 10th, and we're already, forget about April, we're in May, is this all scheduled? I mean,
We've already talked to the planning department about the need for us to have a special meeting.
I didn't want to say it, I'm glad you said it.
So, I mean, obviously that's not guaranteed,
No, I
but
know.
we've been pushing them that if we can pull this whole thing together over the next couple
Because
of
I think
weeks,
that's the only way
that we would
work
need a
with
special meeting. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, so, I mean, the site engineers are working as fast as they can, and they're trying to coordinate with the architects who are changing the building around. So we're pushing all that coordination.
So you feel, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, tell me to shut up, but you're not going to hurt my feelings, but what I'm hearing tonight is we're reworking parts of this, you're working with the city and the land use boards on a special meeting to meet these deadline dates that you have in place.
Sure.
You know what these deadline dates are.
Yes.
We all know what they are.
Yeah.
You feel confident that we'll be able
I feel that a lot of it is...
You're not driving a bus on a special meeting, I understand
No,
that.
I understand that.
But I'm just trying to...
Unfortunately, they're all part of one big wheel of things that are all spinning.
The window's closing.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but ultimately, if we can't come to some determination as to whether the financing works, again, when I presented to you folks publicly the other day, I presented that the goal of this effort is to take what we had asked for back in April of last year, which was a $12 million bond, and reduce that to the minimum amount we possibly could, include the CHAM financing and CHFA financing, include whatever private equity we could that would get the minimum amount of return that they could possibly get to do a deal like this. And that's kind of where we're at. So if the stars aligned on the financing and everybody was on board with it, I'm pretty confident we can get to the land use piece of the equation. That's the least of my concerns, but it's highly dependent on the financing making sense.
With respect to that, so we're going to get an update on the numbers and where you are tonight in executive session.
Yep.
I have the same concerns John does with respect to the time frame. When do you think you're going to have the financing development and leasing plan before this board? Because we have to act on that and make some type of recommendation to the city, and they then have to act.
In May, as early in May as possible. So I actually, originally we had talked about maybe doing a joint board meeting this evening. So now that we're not having that joint board meeting, one of my requests would be that after you guys get our feedback tonight, if folks want to do a joint board meeting, we'd like to have that as soon as possible. So.
Well, we need the formal final finance development and leasing plan that you're asking us to vote on.
Sure.
And I said last time I wanted at least 4 or 5 days for my board members, and especially my new board members, to review it and digest it before we publicly meet and vote. And if you want to do the meeting and the vote as a joint, I guess I'm not understanding, you want a joint session with the city council for Q&A sort of?
Yes.
Public Q&A? Then we've got to squeeze that in, and then we've still got to have our formal vote, and then they've still got to have their formal vote.
Completely understand. Yeah, there's a lot to squeeze in, but we're pushing as fast as we possibly can on all this. So.
Okay. So with that being said, with no formal finance development and leasing plan before us, there's not going to be any vote tonight. So I just want to I want to let folks know that, because we're going to go into executive session, and I don't want the whole universe to sit here thinking we're going to come out and vote on something, because we're not. We have nothing to vote on. So to the extent that we conclude the rest of our business and we head into executive session, Noelle, I do that to you all the time. I am so sorry.
Okay.
Noelle, you do it too? All right. That makes me feel better. It's not just me. We're not going to hold you here, so we'll record the vote to adjourn when we come out, which will be the only vote that's taken. A vote to go back into public session and a vote to adjourn. Okay. With that, do you have anything else that you want to add in public session?
No, I mean, I think that there's always been a lot of concern over the residential component. We've always been very clear that the residential, in our mind, drives the success of this revitalization to a large extent. There's been a lot of push for this retail component, which we believe very strongly has to be involved in this project as well. We think that, the board and the city's push to require us to start with this building satisfies both those needs. What we believe as, the need for the residential to drive the retail, and the desire of, obviously, the community to have the retail. The challenge we always have is that the retail is the one challenge as far as making numbers work, especially with financing, because, ultimately the area around here, the retail rents are low, so we have to compete with that. And we have to provide rents that are competitive to those rent rolls, which ultimately at the end of the day makes it difficult to pay for the cost of building the retail. So it's the same challenge that we've always had, but we're trying to get as creative as we possibly can with all the financing mechanisms that there are out there, and again take what we had originally asked for and submitted, which was a $12 million bond, and reduce that as much as we possibly can to as close to zero as possible, but obviously that's not possible. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
All right, given that, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is I'll request a vote to go into executive session based on the representation from Renaissance that they will be submitting and discussing with us confidential financial information not required by statute and therefore not subject to freedom of information. We will invite into the executive session members from Renaissance. However, Attorney DeVasio, please instruct me if I'm incorrect, but can we take 10 minutes with you and just the board members to go over the rules of executive session, those things before we have people come in?
Absolutely.
I would like to do that. So with that, can I have a motion for executive
Madam
session?
Chair, make a motion, move into executive session. Reason is updating regarding the Renaissance negotiation with potential investors. Do we have to mention who's coming in?
And the confidential financial information.
And confidential what?
The discussion of confidential financial information, disclosure of which is not required by statute.
There you go. Somebody will say.
Would somebody like to second that motion?
Not second.
Jennifer, I'm not clear why with his comments about how it works, the executive session, why wouldn't that be out here before you go in?
Because it's legal advice to the board, and I'm not going to waive privilege by having my attorney instruct my board with legal advice in the public domain. Not necessarily that this particular legal advice I think is confidential, but I think if I allow him to instruct people in public, it waives privilege. That I'm pretty sure of.
We could also take a 5-minute break and I can talk to them in the hall and then we can reconvene.
We could do that too, if it makes Mr. Collins feel better.
Fine, do what you want to do.
Right, any discussion before we, okay, all in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Jennifer, could I ask one quick question? I'm sorry I didn't, I'm unclear of what the actual final date is. I see May 31st, first it was April 31st, then May 31st. Has that been changed again?
There is a the same June 10th deadline to submit their CHAMP application, and in order for the city to approve whatever financial plan they're going to submit as part of the CHAMP application, we have to have a final finance development and leasing plan before this board to vote on. So they have a June deadline to submit their stuff to the state,
Right.
but we have to vote on the plan before they can submit their stuff to the state.
But what was the last extension given?
The last extension was given was through June 30th? June 30th.
June 30th.
Was the last, for amendment number 7, was through June 30th.
Thank you.
We have to add that to the motion.
You want to amend your motion?
I'll amend my motion. Attorney Olander will be joining us in executive session also.
Okay, with that,
Everybody votes.
everybody vote to, Attorney Oland is the attorney for the city of Bristol. So you're inviting him into executive session to hear the presentation by Renaissance. All in favor of doing that?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're in executive session. We go on.